What I'd like to do next is to take Tom into the second part of this interpretation of his profile. This is also a general part that would apply to anybody. We're going to give just an orientation to a profile. It has 4 parts to it. The first part is to talk about whether the profile is flat or differentiated. Flat means there isn't much difference between the columns or the perspectives. There's very little standard deviation, in other words. Differentiated means we can see that some spike higher and some spike lower than others. We want to go for a differentiated profile, but I don't want to tell him what it should be. I want to have him tell me why it is what it is. The second part of it is to talk about the general height of the columns. The height indicates the strength of his views on those particular perspectives. The third part would be to talk about dominant perspective, backup perspectives, and if he has a recessive perspective. And then lastly, I'll end that section by asking him something about the face validity of this. In other words, does this look like you, Tom? Whatever kind of teacher you want to be, does this look like you? So that's where this part's going, okay? Let's turn to Tom now and do that. Tom, I want to talk generally about any profile at all now for a minute and start with whether it's a flat or a differentiated profile. Some people have a profile that's not as well differentiated as yours. You can see yours is stepped, and there's a difference between the perspectives. That's generally more easily interpreted than a flat one. But I suspect you've had a lot of time teaching or working in this field. How long have you been working in the field?
18 years.
Okay. Yeah, so you're experienced enough to know what you are and want to be and what you aren't and don't want to be, pretty much. Is that right?
That's correct.
Okay. That's characteristic of someone really well experienced. One other reason for people, so one of the first reasons that there's sometimes a flat profile is it's a beginner, a newcomer, a novice in teaching, and she or he wants to be everything to everybody. So they give a positive response of strong indication on every possible answer. Well, it doesn't help us much, does it? But at this point, there's another way in which some people have a flattened profile, which you don't. And that is if they have multiple teaching responsibilities across very different venues or contexts or learners and so forth. So what did you focus on as you took this?
For me, I focused on, okay, my experience has been with adult educators, adult learners. Usually these people are, normally they're university educated, not always the case. The courses I put on anywhere from a few hours to a whole week. So I wanted to know, from their perspective, what are they going to take away from this process? And what do I need to give them? For me, it became a real conflict of, okay, do I want to show them, do I want to be an apprenticeship model style approach of here's something I have for you, let's work through it together, or do I want to get them learning? Do I want them to start on that road where they begin to go down, they have some materials from me, they like the course, and now they just want to take off and go for it. And to this day, I'm still having that conflict. That has never resolved itself.
What is the conflict? Name it for us.
The conflict is, should I, as a facilitator, instructor, teacher, be a modeler of information, education, what I want them to learn? Or should I get them going down the road where I engender the desire to learn and they just take it from there? What approach do I take?
How have you reconciled that?
I haven't.
You haven't?
I try to build in both. I try to have exercises whereby, hey, you know what? I'm going to get you going. We're going to go down this road. We're going to follow up. Small group work, really helpful. That's great.
Okay.
And that, I guess, would fall under the belief section. And then there's the practical how to, hey, here's some information for you. I'm going to mimic something or work with something. I'm going to show you a template, a guide, or a process. Or we're going to have a session, a legal session, and you can watch me, then we'll break it down into small steps and work you through it.
Okay, we'll come back to some of that in the next section where we get into the beliefs, intentions, and actions. But let's stay with this now, general orientation to this for a minute, and go back now to the strength of your response. So your columns are fairly high. If they were shorter, that would mean something else, and if they were really short, it would mean something else. What it really is quite simply the strength of your own opinion about the questions you were asked. So it's sort of like a surge factor. If you have a high score, as you do in nurturing there, you feel quite strongly and consistently strong about all the items you answered in that one. And so that length or the height of those columns tells us whether you're strong, moderate, or slightly given to the views you've expressed. So it looks like you're strongly given to whatever it is you're given to here.
I feel more comfortable in my own skin now than I did, say, 3 years ago or 5 years ago or 10 years ago. I don't feel like I have to follow a script. Okay, line 2, say this to the group. Line 3, bring out that document. More of a transmission style approach. I feel like now, okay, I can spread my wings and go with what I really think.
Okay, again, you've mentioned something we'll get to more in detail in the third part of this, that I'm less transmission now than I am something else. But let's now look at the dominant perspective in here and your backup perspectives and then a recessive perspective. If we look at your profile, it's pretty clear that you have a dominant perspective, and that's the nurturing perspective. How do I know that's dominant? I know so because there are 3 lines that cut across all of these. The middle line is the average response for you and you alone. It's calculated entirely on your responses. The line above that middle line is a line at which any column that hits that or exceeds that indicates dominance for you. That's what you say more often than not is true to you. Any line, or any column rather, that just barely touches or drops below the bottom line suggests this is more recessive than present for you. It's something you don't do or don't want to do, one or the other. And in between, you have 2 in between. You have apprenticeship and developmental. Those are your backup perspectives. So the fundamental principle here is we're not one perspective. Nobody is one perspective. You're a combination of perspectives. You're actually a combination of all 5 because you had answers for all 5. But you primarily are a combination of 3. Apprenticeship, nurturing, and developmental. And where we're going to go next is into some of the conflicts you feel about the pull of 2 of those in opposition to each other, okay? Mm-hmm. All right, so we've now just finished this, almost finished this second part. There's one final question for you. If you just look at the profile as it is now, does it look like you?
Yeah, it does.
What is it about it that you say, yes, it does?
It represents how I feel right now when I'm out there teaching. I feel more comfortable being a nurturer, letting people in the group go on their own without being directed with a script. I feel like I can impart or give some kind of information in a way that encourages them, as opposed to, okay, I'm going to stand at the front of the class, I need you to get through all this information by the end of the term, and you're going to prove that to me by taking an examination or a test or proving it in the workplace.